Today, United States Senator Bob Casey was in Wilkes-Barre to talk about the Achieving a Better Life Experience Act, or the ABLE Act. The act passed Congress and the Senate and is now headed to the President's desk to be signed into law. The act is a huge achievement for the autism community.
It's really to set up a 529 savings, a tax advantage savings account for people with disabilities, just like we set up a 529 opportunity for people saving for college or for retirement. So it's a kind of a tested method to do this, and it allows these individuals, when they're older and when they're in the workforce, if their parents aren't around to help them, or their family's not around, they're able to kind of support themselves through these accounts. In addition to having a job where you can have a salary, you can have this account on the side to help you with other needs in your life.
The ABLE Act is built on the same idea as the 529 Educational Savings Plan that helps families save for college. However, the ABLE Act will be able to provide assistance for those living with autism and disabilities.
One of the things we had to do was to design the bill and then redesign it and revise it often. But one of the revisions was to make sure that the focus was on having accounts available for children. So there has to be a diagnosis before the age of 26. So we wanted to make sure that worked for the cost of the bill. And then the limitation on the account is something that allows the total cost of the bill to be $2 billion over 10 years instead of what it could have been, about a $20 billion bill. But as time goes by, we'll have to make adjustments and additions or changes.
George Shadie is president of S.A.F.E. and was thrilled to be on hand for today's announcement.
Well, that's just unbelievable. I know how long the senator's been working on this legislation, and what could be better than to have the press conference today and the president signed it into law. It's just tremendous. And as I said, I'm in the financial services business, and I know all the problems that families have had in the past when they try to provide for their special needs child as time goes on, and this is just a wonderful, wonderful piece of legislation that eliminates a lot of problems for parents.
Pam Zotynia is the executive director of ARCL of Luzerne County. Her son was diagnosed with autism and needs care around the clock. She, like many parents, worry about when she's not around to care for him.
This is a wonderful thing for people, families and individuals with disabilities all over our country. It's a wonderful thing for my son, Robert, who's here with me today. It will give me the ability to make sure that he is financially secure, not only today, but long after I'm gone. It is a constant worry for families. It will allow him to make purchases that he may not be able to have made prior to this bill. You'll see he uses an iPad. It's his communication device. That's something that we have to buy for him, purchase for him. When you live on Social Security as your only means of support, which many people in our country do, these are expensive. These are $300–400 a piece. It will allow us to have money in accounts for him that should he in the future need that, he won't have to worry about where is he going to get it from.
Since the federal government passed this act, all 50 states will now have to pass similar laws. And according to Zotynia, they have already started working on that. In Wilkes-Barre, for WYLN's Late Edition, I'm Gary Perna.
And we are here today to celebrate the Senate's passage of the ABLE Act, which, for those of you who aren't aware, and I don't think there is anyone in this room who isn't aware, this is the most important piece of legislation that has been passed for people with disabilities in more than a quarter of a century. And we just could not be happier. We have with us today Senator Robert Casey, who would champion this bill for many, many years, never gave up. I wanted to recognize a few people who took the time to be here today to celebrate with us. We have Maureen Cronin from the Arc of Pennsylvania, who traveled up from Harrisburg. We have Carol and Walter from Passavant Memorial Homes. They are a new provider in our area, as well as the Arc of Pennsylvania, who not only, the Arc of Northeastern Pennsylvania, who are providing the daily opportunities that everyone needs and providing safe and healthy homes for them. And we have Don Broderick here, who is their director, and we also have one of their board members here. For those of you that don't know Sarah, You all know me as the director of the ARC, and we advocate on behalf of people who live in Luzerne County as well as throughout the state. But I also happen to be a parent, and I have my son with me today. This is Robert and his sister Tiffany. So Robert is 28. So 28 years ago when he was born, we were very fortunate that we had the best little boy in the world was given to us, and we were just thrilled about that. But we quickly realized as he was diagnosed that having a child with a disability not only changes many parts of your lives because you're dealing with the daily disability, but financially it really impacts families. There are many, many services and support set up by our government to help us, but they also hinder us because you must stay within income eligibilities. So for many, many years, I stayed home and took care of my son, and we were so careful of how much money is in our bank account. And don't go over, and if you're $5 over there, he may not be eligible for the services that he really, truly, truly needed to not only help him when he was young, but or really become much more critical when you become an adult. He had a safe home. We had a home, and we certainly could have kept him there and fed him, and we were never, so poor that we couldn't do that, but we were just so careful with our money. But as he began to get older and wanted to have a life of his own, which he absolutely should, as any citizen of our country should, we started thinking, what's going to happen when we're gone and we can't help him financially? He lives in a group home now where he is so happy, and they're wonderful to him there. But there are things that they don't do. It's just not within their power to do for him. So as his family, we do them for him. An example is Robert goes to a wellness clinic for treatments twice a week now. He was going 3 times. That's keeping him healthy. He had some very significant medical issues a few years ago, and we found this treatment that he gets there keeps him healthy and happy. We've tried to stop taking him, and he immediately regresses. It costs me $300 a month for him to get these treatments, and I spend $300 a month for him to get these treatments because I have no choice. I can't not do that for him. And I am able to do that. I am fortunate I have a job that allows me to have the financial means to do that. But if I'm not here and Robert is dependent on his SSI, he can't spend $300 a month on those treatments. And it keeps me up at night. And I'm sure it's keeping his sister up at night as well, because she will step in at some point. And there are things that he wants to have in life. We all want to have fun. We want to recreate. We want to take vacations. And not only my son, but so many people I talk to throughout our state, or actually throughout our country. I'm fortunate to know people all over say we can't go on vacation, or we have to save for so many years before we can do that. This act that passed this week, the ABLE Act, will allow us to make sure that when we're gone, our children have those opportunities, that we can put money aside for them, and they can have the life that they deserve. They can go to college. They can hire supports if they need. If they want to go to work and they need a little extra support and they want to hire a job coach, they'll be able to do that with their own money. They will have their own money to do that. We won't have to say to family members, oh God, please don't leave any money to our children. We know that you want to, that it's so generous of you to want to do that, but by doing that, you'll ruin their life. We don't have to do that anymore. This money, this opportunity will allow them to live safe and healthy lives, which is what we all want for our children. I know it's what I want for my son, and I can tell you that I will sleep a little better now. I'll still worry about a gazillion things, as I'm sure his provider would be happy to share with you all of my concerns. But this is one thing I no longer will be so concerned or worried about. And I really want to personally thank you, Senator Casey, for everything you've done, not only for my family, but every family in our country who will be impacted by this. And with that, I would like to introduce Senator Casey to make some remarks.
Thanks so much. Well, Pam, thank you very much. Thanks for two things: for bringing not only your advocacy experience to this event, but also to bringing your own family story. We're grateful. And Robert, we share the same name. It's kind of interesting as I came in, and apparently he wants to share some things as well. So I'm going to be quick with my remarks today. But I'm really grateful that Pam got us started and gave us her personal insight. I know that in terms of folks that we should thank, the list is very, very long, but I'm grateful that Maureen Cronin is here. I just saw her earlier today at an event in Lackawanna County. I don't know what county we're going to next, but Maureen, I appreciate your work in making this day possible. Don Broderick as well. Don and I come from the same county as well, up the road. George Shadie, I know, has been such an advocate for all of the issues that we're here to talk about today, and especially when it comes to the ABLE Act. Sarah Wolf, who's with me, Sarah and I go back a ways. She told me a long time ago that the best thing for legislators to do as we're trying to get the ABLE Act passed was to stay pumped. And that was probably the best advice we got. It was actually good strategic legislative advice, and I've tried to follow that. But the passage in the Senate of the ABLE Act after passing the House overwhelmingly as it did in the Senate was a great victory for the grassroots, a great victory for families who advocated across this Commonwealth and across this country, a great victory, I should say, for the advocates, the National Down Syndrome Society, Autism Speaks, all of the autism organizations across the country, a whole range of advocacy organizations for individuals with disabilities, ARC being one of the prominent examples of that, all across the country. So this wasn't just a group of legislators getting together. That was a wonderful feature of this. In all of the rancor and divisions in Washington, the Democrats in the House and the Senate and in the administration all came together in unanimity to speak with one voice at long last for individuals with disabilities. But none of that could have happened in Washington were it not for the families and the advocates and the disability community across this region, this state, and across the country. So this, despite all of the frustrations and all of the often justifiable cynicism about government, this was one of those days where it all worked. Everything worked to get this passed. And one of the reasons it passed is because we believe, all of us here who have supported this act, we believe that people with disabilities have a lot of ability. We believe that people can lead a full life, can go to work and have an apartment and ride the bus and grow and learn and progress. But they can't do it if we had maintained this system which would literally say to Sarah, yes, Sarah, you're working every day. She does. But you can only save this small amount of money. It made no sense. And we tolerated it for years. But we finally came together as a country and said, no more. We're going to make sure that people can save for disability-related expenses, whether it's health care or housing or education or anything else. It's a long list of expenses that these individuals and their families can pay for out of that ABLE account, which is a 529, like a 529 plan for college. We're calling these 529As for ABLE, and they can keep up to $100,000 in that account. So it's a happy day when we can say that the House and the Senate came together on something that's important. But today I can announce that today is the day that the President of the United States will actually sign the bill. So that's a good day. I told the President a number of months ago, way back in the summer, I said at some point this year, before the year is out, and I had to fulfill my promise to those who had helped us so much, but I also wanted to promise him and others that he'd be able to sign something that would be overwhelmingly bipartisan. And we're grateful that we're able to say that today. Now we'll have a celebration, many celebrations in the days to come, whether it's here in Pennsylvania or anywhere in the country, including Washington. But I'm glad that today's the day that he's signing the bill, because this is a good day for our country, but especially it's a good day for families who have a challenge every day. And at least we can say that they and those that they love can save for the future. Because if there's one thing that animates and sustains what's best about America, is our belief in tomorrow. We're a country about tomorrow. We've never been a country about yesterday. And this is a day when we can say that the ABLE Act makes it possible for tomorrow to be a little brighter, for tomorrow to be a little bit more within the reach of people across this great country. So I'm grateful for the work of so many families who made this possible and so many great advocates. God bless you and thank you.
I'm a little shorter than the senator, so I have to move this. Thank you. Your words were so inspiring, and thank you again for what you've done for us all. I would like to introduce George Shadie now. George is the president and co-founder of S.A.F.E. and also a parent of a person whose life will change because of this bill.
Thank you, Senator. We have a little present for you, Senator. We appreciate what you've done. By the way, for the children in the audience, I am not Santa Claus. I want to thank you, Pam, for picking this venue. This is a great place, a beautiful lobby, and we planted several people in the audience. As customers are coming in to roll over their CDs, we're soliciting donations for the ARC and for S.A.F.E. The ABLE Act is quite an act. And I have to admit, Senator, I was not in favor of it. I was very concerned about it when you and I first spoke about this down in Harrisburg about 4 years ago, because I am in the financial services business and I do sell a lot of 529 plans for college. But we have to work together and make sure the regs allow things to happen, like beneficiaries and things of that nature. Your father inspired me many, many years ago when a model Senate was held in Scranton, and he inspired me to become active in politics. And I've learned over the years, if you ask for one, you may get some, but if you ask for many, you'll get plenty. The financial world will be ready to take on the responsibilities of 529 plans. I have an expertise in special needs trusts and has presented on them in many, many places over the years. And they're wrought with difficulties, but as it says in the press release, they can be very expensive, and they're very thwarting sometimes to parents to set them up. Alex was born at St. Joseph's in Scranton, and we adopted him in 1990 when he was 3 months old in a special program. This is my son, Alex. Alex, say hello to everybody. And thank the senator. Shake his hands and thank him for his act. Hey, Alex. Now, when we adopted Alex, we were concerned because, well, we weren't concerned, but the institution was concerned because Alex at that time is biracial, and he was in an area that at that time was 99.4% white. And of course, there's always a concern about adoption. Well, once we got the diagnosis, all those concerns disappeared. We didn't get it until he was 4.5, but there was an immediate change at 18 months, and it was after his vaccination. And there is no question that he was vaccine damaged. And thank God for 3 whistleblowers that came out recently that retired from the federal government have admitted that the information about vaccinations was doctored. And hopefully, by admitting that, we'll be able to make more improvements and ameliorate the conditions that we have to deal with disabilities. Now, we handled that diagnosis very difficultly, and those of you that are parents, you know how difficult that is. Alex shut down at 18 months, right after his vaccination. He was developing normally, had the vaccination, the next day he was a completely different child, stopped speaking, and was very, very involved, as they say. At that time, there was no hope, except we were told he would have to be institutionalized. When you walk in the morning and you find your son covered with blood because he obsessed in picking his nose till it bled profusely, you really think that maybe that's the only hope. But we would never give up. We were also told he would never speak. Alex, you have your iPhone with you? Pull your iPhone out. Thank God for technology. Alex lost his ability to communicate. He does speak now. Sometimes he gets on my nerves, I have to admit, especially with the OCD, but men are famous for OCD too, so I guess that goes with the gender. But many of our children have died, and they have died because they don't have the ability to communicate. A simple phrase like, "Mommy, I'm sick," and they go to bed and they never wake up, because I know of instances with a virus and a heart condition that was never detected. So language is very, very important. 911, we were all concerned about what was going on. We were very upset about it, and of course it was all over on the TV. Several days later, not realizing Alex was watching what was going on, he said, "Airplane, boo-boo." And we had to sit down and explain to him what that meant and what was going on. Now, Claire and I were scheduled to go to a conference in Desert Springs, and she told me she didn't want to fly. She was afraid to fly. And I said, well, I'm going one way or another, because that's exactly what the terrorists want. We're not going to stop the way we live. And let's hope Sony changes their mind. We can go see that movie. We don't want our lives to be changed through fear. And there was no fear with the diagnosis, just wondering what we can do. Now, that was on September 11th. On September 10th, Claire died in my arms as we kissed goodnight from a brain aneurysm that we didn't know we had. 3 days later, about 2 days before the funeral, not realizing Alex saw me performing CPR in our bedroom, started mimicking. This is 3 days later. Okay, I know you're happy. Or maybe he doesn't want to hear this again. But he mimicked CPR. And then I realized I really had to explain to him what was going on, and explain to him that his mommy was now an angel, and he was an angel at one time, and we'll all go back to being angels. And he certainly understood that. And I have to say, as a 12-year-old, he handled it a lot better than I did. S.A.F.E was established for support. It was to help families and find out what was out there and the best therapies. And thank you to the Senator and to the President signing the law today. This is a wonderful tool that we now have. Now, there's some work we have to do together to make sure the regulations are proper. And I do have to say, I just learned about the $100,000 limit. Over time, we got to change that, because, you know, when Alex is 60, $100,000 will not be a lot of money. So that's, at least we have it, and now we can work on it. It's a wonderful, wonderful gift. We also established the Coalition on Autism, where we brought together all the administrators in the county to help us with the regs and understand, as parents and our support group, how to make sure we could get these things working, because, as you know, as parents and administrators, it's a morass of regulations and quite difficult. The most important thing I've always told administrators and politicians is never take away hope. There's always something that can happen, and the most important tool that we have in our quiver is hope. Alex just pulled out his iPhone. I got it for him 2 years ago. His speech has been improving dramatically, But at least once a day, I get a text from him. On Monday, I got this text. Daddy, I did my chores, going to speech, I love you. Perfect grammar, perfect spelling. He's very careful about that. There's recently a video I watched this morning on Facebook that you can get. You can Google Stossel and autism, a young girl in Toronto, who talked about severe stims and what they were like and why she would do that. She said, and she was typing this on a computer, that's the way she communicates. She said when she meets a person and sees them, she gets 1,000 pictures of their face. Sounds that you and I can live with. There's some air conditioning or heating sounds in this building. It affects our children because there's sensory overload. The most important thing for parents to realize is a good behavioral program. It's called Applied Behavior Analysis, and you work with a board-certified behavior analyst, and you have consistency in this positive reinforcement across all spectrums. And now with this 529 plan, there are things that we'll be able to do for our children that we couldn't do before. We always have to remember the serenity prayer that we open up our meetings at S.A.F.E. God grant me the strength to change the things that I can, the serenity to accept the things that I can't, and the wisdom to know the difference. And I always believe that in the famous words of Winston Churchill at the end of the Second World War, when he gave a very famous but short speech, never, 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 never give up. So, Senator Casey, thank you for this most important tool to help us build a future for our children. As an advocate and president of S.A.F.E., one of the first or worst phone calls I would get, and I get them at least once a month, I'm 80 years old, I just got diagnosed with terminal cancer. My son is 60 and he's lived with me all his life. Who's going to take care of him? 529 is changing that. So, this is a great Christmas present. I know you've been working on it for years. There hasn't been much legislation passed in the last several years, but it's a credit to your hard work and persistence that this got passed and today was signed. So the key to success, you could have all the knowledge and the talent and relations in the world, but nothing happens without hard work and persistence. So Senator, God bless you and your family, and God bless all of our families. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Let's go.
Thank you, George. Now I would like to introduce Sarah Wolf. Sarah is a dear friend of mine. She sits on the board of the ARC of Pennsylvania, the ARC of Northeastern Pennsylvania, which is our local chapter, and also the board, and if I get this incorrect, don't hit me, the National Down Syndrome Society. Sarah is a champion of this bill as well. She connected with Senator Casey several years ago because I remember her telling me when we were at board meetings, and she never let go of this, and she never let him let go of this either, I'm sure. If you're on Facebook, I'm sure you've seen Sarah. She has promoted this bill and pushed this bill and talked to every legislator who would listen to her. And we really, as well as thanking the senator, we really need to thank Sarah today for how she has changed our lives. So with that, Sarah.
I hope everyone can see me because I'm very short up here. Good morning. It is such an honor to be here today to celebrate the passing of the ABLE Act. My favorite word is woohoo! I learned about ABLE in 2007 when I became a board member at the National Down Syndrome Society. But it was after I learned that a co-sponsor of the bill was my hometown senator, Senator Casey, that I became excited about advocating for such an important piece of legislation. ABLE allows individuals like me to move past the outdated laws that chain us to poverty and look to planning our financial future without fearing the loss of much needed government benefits. Words cannot express the emotion I felt as I watched this bill pass through the House and the Senate with overwhelming bipartisan support. I am so pumped that soon it will be signed by the President and individuals with disabilities can reach their full potential for a better life. Thank you, Senator Casey, for being a champion for ABLE and having me here today. Thank you.
Well done.
Okay, I would like to open the floor for any questions that anyone might have for the senator.
We can do them individually too if people have.
Okay, well, with that, we are going to end our celebration, but I wanted to just say one more time, thank you so much, Senator Casey. Please let us know how we can help you improve on the bill if need be. And now that we have the ABLE Act, which will be signed today by the President, there will be some state legislation that's going to also have to move forward. So watch your email boxes, check your Facebook accounts. I'm sure that the advocacy organizations, I know the ARC, I know DRN, will be getting things out in the next few days so that Pennsylvania can move quickly so that we can actually implement it here and start using this lovely, wonderful legislation. And I wanted to wish everyone a very happy holiday season. What better gift could we have than this act? Thanks again.
Senator,